Thursday, March 5th, 2020. It is 7:03 p.m. May we all rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, out of order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Coyne,
Here.
Commissioner Grau, Commissioner Leduc,
Here.
Commissioner Leach,
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Here.
Commissioner Tunnell, Commissioner Harrington.
Here. Does anyone have anything they'd like to amend, add, or delete to our current agenda this evening? Seeing none, we'll now move on to public comment on non-agenda items. Also seeing none, we have the Oakton Park and Facility Task Force process, which I will look to Executive Director Mountcastle to give us an update.
I'd be happy to. So in your packet is the first public communication that's going to be mailed. That will go to the printer, or I shouldn't say that, the post office on March 6th, which is tomorrow. And so this is our first introduction, formally of the project to the public. And I can answer any questions about this letter if you want. It also has an attachment on the back and talks shows, of course, the visual of the plan, the master plan, and talks about, just in very general, some key bullet points. So that will go to all of the Park Ridge Park District registered voters. So that goes out Friday. We also have a newsletter that is at the printers. It's more of a Q&A, and that is, so this has not gone out to the public, and this won't go out till March 13th, but this will be very helpful to all of you because it answers a lot of the questions that we've been getting and, that staff has thought of, through talking to people or just, in general, the things that we believe will be asked. So this is something that will go out next to the post office March 13th. And what would be helpful to us is if you could, if you get questions, you can't answer them, or if you just want us to know about them, or you want us to answer them, just forward them, to me or Margaret, and we can be the conduit, and then we'll push them out to other people. But as we go through the process, it'll be helpful to know what else people are asking so we can adjust for when we go out to these public meetings. On March 20th, the survey will then go out. And so the whole point is of us going out to all these public meetings and giving these mailings to the public is so that they are hopefully somewhat informed before they fill out the survey about what they think, about the project. And so we are attending, the staff and I will be at the majority of those, and then another staff member, 13 group, public meetings. They're not public meetings, they're organization meetings so far. And we've got feelers out to a couple more that we haven't heard from, 6 Park District events or in the lobbies, and then 2 public meetings that will be for everybody. And those dates are also listed on this first mailing. They'll be April 1st. One's a Wednesday evening and one's a Saturday, April 18th. So Margaret's also working on doing Facebook Live, and we've never done that for a meeting. So we'll be able to advertise that, and people can send in questions. So we'll see how that goes for this, because as our consultant told us, and as we all know, a lot of people don't come out to these regular public meetings, but we do want to offer them for the purposes of information. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we are having a all-staff meeting Tuesday, and then we're going to also have an attorney from Ansel Glink. It's not Jerk, but it's somebody that specializes in this subject, come talk to the staff about what we can and cannot say during this process. And, typically you would do that right when, when you start going for a referendum, but because this process is such that it is that we're already going out to the public and talking to the public, we want to know, we want the staff to understand. And it's basically, they can just talk about the facts, right? And it's the same for the board. And we are also trying to get her to come to the board meeting. It's about a half hour. She said about half hour, what she has to communicate to the next board meeting for the board as well. So you're aware of what you can and cannot say. Dirk did send me that the statement, and I thought it was important, maybe I'll just read it real quick, it's not long, so everybody understands up until that point that we get the training. Hopefully she can make it at that meeting, but the rules on this, right? He said, "The Park District as an entity can have no position on political matters like a referendum question or who should be elected commissioner." So obviously that's in the case of elections. "Thus, the Park District as an entity cannot take a position nor spend money advocating for a position, nor can any district resources like phones, copier, et cetera, be used by anyone at the Park District to advocate for a position. All the district and its resources can do is inform on facts." And that's why all of this information has gone through Dirk. And he has had edits. However, individuals, where it gets tricky, elected officials, employees acting in their individual capacities using their personal resources are free to exercise their First Amendment rights and take any position they like. So as individuals using individual resources, they can say whatever they want. So, right, another one of those tricky ones. But she will be here to hopefully explain that more at our next meeting. And if not, I'll definitely, get her out to see the board soon. So I'm happy to answer any questions at this point on this. And then after all this data is brought back, the survey results, the phone survey that they'll be doing, and all of our input from these meetings on May 6th, and the task force will gather, and they will then, make a recommendation to the board at one of the meetings after that. And the board, well, then we'll go from there to decide what we're going to do with Oakton. Any questions?
Questions for Gail? Commissioner Leduc?
I just have one. So, will there be a digital version available online as well
Yes.
that we can link to?
Yes, everything that we're putting on, Margaret's going to put a tab on the homepage, like she's working, if it's not there already, on the very front, to the left with all the main topics. And it's going to link, and all of this is going to be there. There'll be the meeting information with the task force, all of those agendas and those materials from that, presentation materials. Plus, we're going to have a video that shows, Oakton. People can click on and look through that. And then I forgot to mention, part of our public outreach is on Wednesday morning, there's going to be 6 Wednesday mornings that we're going to publicize on there that Terry and Brent, or Terry and Brent, but mainly Terry's going to be there, and Jennifer, to take any public that show up at 7:30 in the morning on a tour.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's helpful. I wish every Park Ridge Park District resident was a registered voter, but
Right.
since they won't get the mailing, can we also do an email blast using our?
Yeah, I'm sure we can. I mean, why not? The more we get it out,
Exactly.
the better. I mean,
Sharing more
so,
information.
yes, sure.
Any other questions for Gail from the board? All right. I will turn it over to Commissioner Leduc for the finance portion of the meeting.
Thank you. So I have this motion here. I move to reconsider the prior motion to adopt Resolution 20-2, quote, "A resolution authorizing the participation in the Northern Illinois Municipal Electric Collaborative, NIMAC, and authorizing the executive director to approve a contract with the lowest cost for a period of up to 36 months."
Second?
Superintendent DeAngelis, any comments?
The motion to reconsider is so that the motion under agenda item 7B could be suggested.
Any commissioner questions or comments? Seeing none, Marianne, if you could call the question?
Commissioner Coyne? Aye. Commissioner Grau? Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Leach?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle? Commissioner Harrington?
Yes.
All right, and so then the next motion, I move to adopt Resolution 20-2, authorizing participation in NIMAC and further ratifying, nunc-pro-tunc, the action of the executive director approving a contract through NIMAC on March 3rd, 2020, with the lowest cost renewable energy electricity provider for a period of 36 months.
Second?
Superintendent DeAngelis, I'll turn it to you.
So this ratifies the contract that we entered into on the date of the bid, using the lowest cost renewable energy provider instead of the lowest cost bidder. The difference was estimated to be about $3,600 more annually than the lowest cost bidder, which seemed reasonable. So I don't know if anyone has any discussion or.
Any commissioner comments or questions?
So the resolution is in effect currently just for the length of the contract?
Yes.
Yes, so the resolution was for up to 3 years, and we actually did it for 3 years. So the 3-year price, I think, was slightly lower than the 2-year price. So that was one of the factors in recommending the 3-year. Yeah.
It was very interesting.
Yes, and just as a side comment, I want to thank Sandra and Gail for working on this, and all the commissioners who talked to me when I was calling about this the other day. And Commissioner Leach, you had a?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I have. One of them is, first point, what created the timing urgency of kind of the calls this week? Maybe I'm not understanding that as well. And then number two, I know I had mentioned to Commissioner Leduc, I was in favor of more of a short-term period, and there's for a couple reasons. One, I actually agree with Executive Director Mountcastle that it's at a very low rate, and it was advantageous for us to secure it. But at the same time, I would also suggest, like interest rates in today's environment, this might not be the historical low in the next few months. So
Absolutely.
so by when you set a longer term contract now, is there a pricing provision that allows? So it kind of helped me walk through why we wouldn't have just did a 1 year, and then why was there urgency in the first place?
It'd be helpful since you weren't at the last board meeting. We spent a lot of time kind of discussing all the parameters about how, yeah.
So do I want to address that?
I don't want to go. I want the condensed version.
Um,
But I want the condensed version since I didn't get the call until just this week, and so I just wanted to know. I know you
So
had
the
to
orig-
move right now.
the authorization was because the bids occur on one day. And as you know, the market changes.
Yep.
So the resolution was to authorize the executive director to execute the contract based on the lowest price bid. So the way that NIMAC bids, they aggregate all the usage for all of the over 100 municipalities that participate in the cooperative, and the electric providers bid on that aggregate amount. Then they choose the lowest bidder, and then they allocate that based on each individual municipality's actual usage. So, and us and 4 other entities had requested information on renewable pricing. So they provided us with renewable pricing from that same low bidder. So when we talked about giving the authorization at the last meeting, there was some question about how we know whether the bid for renewable energy was going to be reasonable. The direction was to go ahead with the resolution as written. So the urgency was that we didn't really know what the difference would be, and when we saw the numbers and that it was such a low differential, there was interest in getting additional input from the board to see whether we would like to use the renewable pricing.
So at our last board meeting, there was a general interest in us as a park district exploring renewables, but having no idea what the price differential was between traditional and renewable. The board made a decision to go with the lowest cost bidder because we couldn't do a hypothetical in authorizing. And then that's hence why Commissioner Leduc reached out to commissioners individually to get just general feedback and feelings. And it sounded like, according to feedback given to the executive director, that there was general consensus from the board to move forward with the renewable option, given the $3,600 investment per year to move towards renewables.
Correct. And I, before we decided that that was okay at all, we checked with our attorney, and he's the one that said, yes, we can handle it in the way in which, we've brought it to you tonight. And just kind of as a side note, when we were on the call, NYMEX said that about 85% of the 100 districts were taking the 3-year
3 years.
term
Yes.
as well. So if
So-
that means anything. I mean, I'm just, for context, I guess. So
Yes, so
throw
I,
that
I would say that that was a factor in our
Mhm.
decision to go ahead with the 3-year. When we do the bidding, as we talked about at the last meeting, we do it really for budget certainty, not to kind of guess what the market's going to do. So we could, to do the 1 year versus the 3-year, another of the factors that I think played into that decision was the tightness of the bids across the terms. So for 1 year, 2 year, and 3-year, like I said, the 2-year was a little bit higher. The 3-year was actually lower than the 2-year, but a little bit higher. But they were all very close. So to be able to lock in that budget certainty at this historical low rate, but you're correct, the rates could go lower. But we don't try to predict what the market's going to do. We try to make the best informed decision to help us with budget certainty, at the time we're reviewing the bids.
Okay. I think that's very helpful, and I appreciate it because I wasn't here. So it makes sense why I got the call from Commissioner Leduc. It makes sense why I supported the renewable bid. The last question that I have is the follow-up is then what, if I understand the second and the third year options, what was the first? What was its price point compared to the second and the third? Because I had thought that was the lowest of them all.
It was.
Because I just would say, is it being the lowest, that once again, it was just my preference that you go, i.e. lowest. I love the fact that you got renewable. So even though I wasn't here at the last meeting to mention it for the 4th or 5th time, I am ecstatic that we were able to do that piece. I just
the 3-year.
would suggest, just like CD rates, I think we still have a lot of money in CDs.
Mhm.
I think being conscious of the interest rate environment and being conscious of the energy environment, while it might not provide you the certainty in the budgetary process, is still kind of smart at times. And that's all. I'm not questioning the decision either. I'm just saying
Okay.
that's just my 2 cents on a phone call with Commissioner Leduc. That's all. It's worth 2 cents, by the way.
Yes, and I, expressed this to a couple of commissioners. I think that another reason we got ourselves in this position, in the end, it worked out, in my opinion, the best way it could, right? But we don't have in our policy anything about considering renewable, or, what would you call it? Renewable. It's not always on all of our products, right, across the district. We don't have anything saying you should be looking at this and, analyzing the green version, versus, the other price. So we need that in our policy, and we need to talk to the board about that, because then it'll be more clear cut, right? That we bring that to you originally and maybe on purchases over a certain amount, or these types of purchases, because of course it's more expensive usually, right? And so we have to look at all those factors. And I'm not saying we don't do that on, several occasions, but we don't always, that's why Sandra didn't do it. Like we said, only 5 of the 100 even asked about it, right? So I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying it's a new, it from 3 years ago, we wouldn't have even thought about it, right?
Just to be clear, I'm once again not critical at all.
No, I'm
glad
just-
the optionality came up.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of talking about a little further, like the urgency, where that came from.
Yep, that
So,
makes sense.
Mhm.
I think we joined 40% of park districts across the country and now choosing a renewable energy option. So
That's great.
yeah, seems to be a growing interest to park districts. But I do hear what you say. When we spent a little time on this about the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year options, and it sounds like it's a question the board has struggled with for some time. Have we always gone the 3 year route since we participated in NIMEC for a significant amount of time?
We have, but again, a lot of it has to do more with, what is the differential across the terms when, and yeah, this kind of the slope of that increase. And, to me, what that says is the energy market, is expecting that prices would not be going up over these 3 years. So that it would make sense to lock it in at this time, but they could go up or down. And that's the risk that we take if we do a 1 year transaction. Right. I mean, it could, there could be a shock and prices go up. So it's,
The only factor she sees is the election, right? Because of the, where we're getting our electricity and because the gas market drives it. I learned some things, and then so that if the gas, if we're not the fracking and the drilling, that we have our own source of gas. So the gas prices drive, you guys might know this, drive the electric prices. But so it sounded to me with that volatility, we don't know what's going to happen there. And it's at a 20-year low that it was a smart thing for this. But we don't know, right? I mean, it's a,
right. We
we
don't.
understand what you're saying. And
Yeah. But it gave me comfort that, like Gail said, 85% of other municipalities were also doing the 3 year transaction. So it's not like we were an outlier there. So, any other questions?
Commissioner Coyne?
So more of a comment than a question, or maybe it's a question, I guess. So when we voted, we had no idea what the differential would be between the renewable and the other. And had we known that the differential was relatively small, we probably would have, well, at least I shouldn't say we, I would have approved to go to the renewable out of the box, even, because the differential was small. I don't quite understand why, even though we might have not known the exact numbers, why we couldn't have had that information in front of us at the time of the meeting to either have somebody from NIMAC or wherever communicate to us and say, over the last 6 months, we've noticed the renewable is running at 0.5% more expensive than the regular, the traditional. Now, I don't know if that's, so it kind of, that's why I'm a little frustrated. Plus, if we had known if I had known the differential between the 1 year and the 3 year being relatively small, even though it was lower, the only thing that would hold me back there is that I feel like we're handcuffing future boards to a contract that we're signing now, because we're just sort of putting it out there and saying this is what we're going to do, and then the next version of me comes along and goes, what's this? And they haven't talked about it ever before, which is my situation. But it's actually the situation of everybody on the board because we weren't here when most of us weren't here when the last one was voted on. So those are my comments. I think I'm not going to make a federal case out of it because at the end of the day, I would have voted for exactly what we wound up voting for, but the deal that you wound up striking. But it would have been really helpful to the board, I think, to have some idea of where this was beforehand and what other options we might have in terms of energy outside of NIMAC. I mean, I know that there's the consistency of the expense. I appreciate all that, but we might have needed to just at least touch on it before we came into the meeting, and maybe I missed that meeting. I don't know.
You did not, and I will work to do a better job of getting that information in front of you.
And I mean, something we can look at as a board next time this comes up in 3 years for those of us who are still here is if we want to avoid any sort of like phone call round robin scenario, is to maybe have a short special meeting on that date, because, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that NIMAC releases the numbers and then you have to make the decision that day. And that's the tough part of it.
Yeah, it has to be an in-person meeting though, between the hours of
Oh, yeah.
Right.
noon and 3, right?
Right, and that's what
I
would-
was signing that thing at 4:28.
And that's what's tough too, right? So I'm not saying that that's absolutely what should be done next time, but I mean, that's something maybe the board
Well, now
should.
that we know you want
think
prices
about.
on renewable energy on this specific product, we will bring, I'm sure they have that information. So that's all we need to do.
And as Commissioner Coyne mentioned, you can do some research now, looking back over the last 3 years and be more prepared to bring it before the board. and-
I mean, and it's not making excuses, but the guy on the phone was not, I mean, they didn't have a lot of, I feel like he wasn't really prepared for that as much as, yeah, he knew the answers, but he wasn't. I'm sure they can get it, but it's not something that they were also working on hard, because 5 people of 100, even
Right.
asked about it, right?
But that was the day of,
No.
or was
I
that
don't know.
and during
That was
that was
when
in the
we
lead
found
up to
out.
this, okay.
Yeah, that's what we found out on the call that day, because we found out the commissioners wanted that. But if we, like Sandra said, if we brought it the month earlier, we could have, we would just need to bring it a month earlier, and this would have solved that, right? So, duly noted.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
In my experience, that information is available. I mean, you wouldn't be able to know what the exact number is going to be, but energy prices are updated almost on a daily basis, and you can get quotes and estimates from
Oh, yeah, I was talking about the renewable number. I'm sure it's available.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other commissioner comments or questions? All right, if you could call the question, please.
Commissioner Grau, Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel, Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrington.
Yes.
All right, and with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Leach.
It looks like I have a motion for the adoption of ordinance number 2020-2, disposal of surplus property, in that I move to adopt ordinance number 20-2, an ordinance authorizing the sale of used personal property owned by the Park Ridge Park District. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, open for discussion. Go ahead, sorry, Superintendent Wolf.
That's all right. I have a memo on page 7. Over the past several years, we've purchased several different vehicles, trucks that come with lift gates. It's become a pretty regular practice for safety purposes and just to help staff accomplish their work to put lift gates onto the back of the vehicles. When that happens, the tailgate comes off, the bumper comes off, and we've been storing them. And so staff just had a accumulation of 4 brand new bumpers and tailgates and determined that that has to have a value in the aftermarket for various reasons, and we don't have a need for it. They actually evaluated it to determine whether it was worthwhile to keep one or not, and ultimately decided it's just the reality of us ever needing one is slim to none. So we'd just as soon try to recoup some money on that and put it back into our budget.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, could you call the vote?
Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel, Commissioner Coyne,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau, Commissioner Harrington.
Yes.
I have another motion that I'd like to read. I move to approve Verde Energy Efficiency Experts as the lowest responsible bidder for the Oakton Driving Range LED retrofit lighting and accept the total base bid amount of $41,000 and to authorize the president to execute and deliver the agreement. Do I have a second? So got a second? Open for discussion. Superintendent Wolf, please.
Yes, on page 11 of the board packet is a memo. Just as a reminder, in 2019, we replaced the lighting at South Park at Kalina Field and the tennis courts because we were having issues with the lighting that was there. The money we had budgeted was not all used for that project. We had a surplus. I asked to redirect that surplus to offset the cost of this project to again fix problems with some LED lights that we had purchased from that same vendor at the time. And so this was covered by the savings in the South Park lighting project and is expected to come in under our budget overall, and what we budgeted for this year. So.
Other questions or comments? Yes.
I don't understand that. Could you explain that a little more?
Yeah, back in 2018, maybe late 2017, we had replaced several lights. So last year we had budgeted $100,000 to replace the lights at South Park. We had found a solution that was much cheaper than $100,000 when the bids were awarded, and so we had about $45,000 remaining. And when we were going through the budget process, I requested that we take that savings that we had, create a capital project for 2020 to replace the lights at the driving range. Yep.
Other questions or comments? Superintendent Wolf? Seeing none, could you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnell, Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Grau, Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrington.
Yes.
For my next motion, I move to approve the district's membership at the end user in the Houston Galveston Area Council, HGAC, Cooperative Purchasing Program. Do I have a second?
Second.
Open for discussion, Superintendent Wolf.
So just as a cost savings measure, we do participate in several different joint purchasing co-ops. In the past, these were things that I would work out with the attorney. I would have them have the attorney review the co-op and identify whether it met the certain statutes required for us to purchase under the Park District Code. In this situation, Dirk indicated that it did, but it did require the approval of the board because it is essentially an intergovernmental agreement, whereas this group down in Houston, Galveston area, has actually put out a bid for these products and for several other products with this company, and they are extending that offer and opportunity to anybody in the country to join them on that bid price. To say, hey, would you like to get in on this bid? We've got a great deal. And so when we reached out to our local rep for the shelter we were looking for at part of our project, we asked, what was the price? Determine whether or not we'd have to go to bid or not, or if there was a joint purchasing agreement available. And he indicated, well, here was my price, but if you were part of this Houston Galveston area cooperative, then it would reduce your cost by $1,800 over what he could offer me here. So, and regardless of if we put this product out to bid, it would be getting purchased. I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but it'd be coming through New Toys, which is who the product will be coming from regardless. So this is really just a method for us to save money on this and potentially other projects or purchases in the future.
Before I open up to questions and comments, is this for Hinckley or which park are this project applied to?
This is for by the Nature Center for the museum grant project that we're working on.
Okay.
So that was a project that the museum grant was awarded in 2014. The funds were frozen, and then just recently in 2018, we learned that those funds were being re-released, and we've been working through that project. So
Perfect. Yep. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, could you call the vote, please?
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnell, Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Grau, Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington.
Yes.
And I actually have another motion. I move to authorize the purchase and delivery of a 30, I thought that's what we just did, but I think it's following this. I move to authorize the purchase and delivery of a 30 by 52 picnic shelter for the museum grant project in the total amount of $31,384 through the Houston Galveston Area Council Cooperative Purchasing Program, HGAC, and to authorize the executive director to execute and deliver the agreement. Do I have a second? Oh, I got 2 seconds. Open for discussion, Superintendent Wolf.
as I mentioned, this project is part of that museum grant. If you flip to the back side of the quote, I don't know if I see a page number on it, page 15, you can see a colored rendering of what we're looking to accomplish. The fireplace that you see is an add-on and built separate, but this manufacturer will work directly with us to modify the structure so that we can incorporate this fireplace, which is why this particular shelter was very appealing to us. So.
Before I open it up to comments and questions, I just want to suggest, so you've already confirmed we're going to have a fireplace, correct? The rendering's wonderful, and we're going to burn wood in it. Perfect. Love it. I think it's a great amenity for the public and for the Nature Center. So it's a very cool design for anyone that can't see it, which is almost everybody.
So thank you. And we've spent a lot of time talking about the shelter and fireplace, and these colors are not I'm very particular about colors personally, and the staff knows that. So, but this is not what exactly it's going to look like. As a matter of fact, we looked at the stone for the fireplace yesterday, but it is going to be a new feature for the district and something that fits right in with the programming out there. And I agree, it's going to be a very popular rental spot. The shelter is how much bigger than the one that's out there now at the Nature Center?
It's at least twice the size,
Twice the
maybe a little
size,
bit bigger
right,
still.
Right,
yeah.
so we're excited about that. It's all through the grant, so.
Yeah, again, very, very impressed. Other comments or questions by staff? Commissioner O'Donnell.
So I think you've gone around on this one. What is the current plan with the existing shelter?
Currently, the plan is to remove it, and I'm still evaluating whether or not I can reuse it somewhere. So we haven't quite gotten to that answer yet, but we will be preserving it when it comes down until we make that final determination.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harrington.
I see the itemized budget dollars and then expenses for this project thus far, and there's a significant difference remaining. Are there other features I'm missing and that are to come?
Yes, yeah, and I should have pointed that out. Thank you for bringing that up. These prices don't include the installation of the shelter, the concrete that has to go underneath it. There's also a lot of interpretive signage and things that help it function as a part of the museum grant that Margaret's working closely with the rec team out there on. So there's a handful of things, and we've put in allowances and what we anticipate them to be, and the budget's really quite tight. We don't expect to see much in leftover on this project. So,
Great.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Seeing that none, can I have a vote, please?
Commissioner Tuttle, Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Grau, Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrington.
Yes.
Great. And my last motion, I hope, for the night is I move to approve the agreement with White and Company in the amount of $27,500. It includes the design, engineering, permitting, bidding, and construction administration of an ultraviolet UV system for the 2 indoor pools and the spa at the Centennial Fitness Center, and to authorize the executive director to execute and deliver the agreement contingent upon attorney review. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Open for discussion. Superintendent Wolf.
This was a project that we talked about at length as we went through the capital project or capital budget planning for this year. This is kind of an extension of the need and the desire to improve the indoor pool at the fitness center. We've come to the determination that we think the UV is going to have the greatest impact. We might do some of the ventilation upgrades as well with this and coordination with it. So this is just the agreement to move forward with White. The majority of White's cost here is that they're bringing in Water Technologies Incorporated as a sub-consultant because they're indoor pool specialists and considered one of the best in the industry. So we're going to work with them to get this project out to bid and installed for our shutdown this year.
Other comments and questions? Seeing none? Oh, sorry. Commissioner O'Donnell.
So this is one where we have a multi-year plan that was recommended by a consultant. And so with this, because I know you had said that this was a lesser a smaller expense than what we were originally anticipating at this phase. Anyway, how are we doing relative to the long-term plan, timing-wise and dollar-wise?
So timing wise, we took a step back in the time because we had anticipated doing this last year, right? But just from an overall perspective, I have a sense that, and so does the staff, that this may well help eliminate a few of the other steps in there and put us in a much better pool environment going forward. So this going UV is really addressing directly the problem instead of trying to it's stopping the problem from happening versus trying to deal with a problem that's just occurred. And we think that's a better long-term solution. Just from an overall budget perspective, I'm thinking and hoping it'll help us, but I still see this. We have it planned out for, I believe, over the next 9 years. We take a year or two off, then we have a couple additional upgrades and a few years off. So we did some work on the filters last year, which has proven to be already beneficial with the water clarity. And then staff's been doing a couple of upgrades and changes internally that we felt that we could handle in-house, such as just replacing rusted out, hardware and things like that around the pool deck. So
could I paraphrase what you said to say we're pretty much on schedule with what we originally projected by the end of this project, and that you're not anticipating that we're going to have to spend a lot more money than what was originally estimated?
I would agree with that. Thank you for helping me with that.
And then I'll just add, because I have the spreadsheet in front of me, which this could change based on what happens with the UV.
We have to know.
Right, but it's, this year in 2021, we have dollars, and then not until 2024. I think that's the number that could go down if we get the AV, if the AV is successful, correct?
Yes.
The UV, yeah.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, could you call for the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Coyne,
Aye.
Commissioner Grau, Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnell, Commissioner Harrington.
Yes.
And I believe I get to turn this back over to President Harrington.
No more motions, huh?
Not yet.
All right. So it is that time of year where the board works with our executive director to hear from her about the 2019 goal summary and all that she and the district have accomplished in the previous year before we adjourn to close meeting to discuss the executive director's performance and review. So I will turn it over to Executive Director Mountcastle, who can share with us the 2019 goals.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I wanted to take time to thank the board and the staff for all of their work. It's quite impressive every year when, we look back and see what we've accomplished. And I think that that's we attribute that to all of the team. And the board pushes us, and I push the staff. And so we do not sit idle. And, we are very interested in always moving forward and, looking at all the trends and, in everything that we do at the district and running this place like a business, but also remembering we also are a tax-supported agency and doing certain things that we are able to do, like special events, et cetera, for the public. It don't cost money. So I'm very proud to lead this organization and of the year that we've had. And so I am going to go through and highlight the things that I thought stood out, and certainly stop me at any time if you would like, or we can go back. So however you want to do it, but I will just start out on page 17 is where my report starts. And first and foremost, I will go through the goals and the objectives that were set out for myself. And the first one has to do with financials. And we, the goal or the objective was to achieve a projected net income of $250,000 in the operating fund. And I'm thrilled to say that we've had an excellent financial year for several reasons that I'll get into. But we are looking at a estimated, we're looking at a $850,000 transfer. And of course, that has to be reviewed by the audit. Sandra and I spent some time today looking at these numbers so we can be assured that we could share that with you, because it's a substantial increase into what we budgeted. And we're very comfortable, is that Sandra, right? We're very comfortable with this number. We actually, in the operating fund are even higher than that, but there's some funds that can't transfer out the money. It's areas that we cannot, the special recreation fund, and it's not getting into all the details, but we ended up even higher than that 850. So, some of the reasoning, and I know we talked about this at the last meeting a little bit, but the general things, and I've written them down. There's the interest income revenue, the corporate replacement tax revenue was about $160,000 of that amount. Salaries and wages was about 246,000 savings, which is a very large number, and that was attributable to, we had 13 people, a full-time staff turnover, retirements, or went other places, and that was a very high, and that was in 2018. We had that turnover, so the effects of that we saw in 2019 when we were hiring in replacements for those positions, and some of those positions we did not fill right away. So that was 246,000, and 166 of that was full-time. So that was a big number of that. Programming, again, in the rec program areas alone, that's not any of the facilities, but all the rec programs, the net was 150,000 higher than it was last year. That's attributable to several things. It's up and down in certain programs, but the ones that were up substantially is Beyond the Bell, the theater classes, Brickton, but that Brickton's not included in that number, but the theater programs, and then various other programs up and down throughout the budget. But so it's 150,000 net up from last year. The other larger items that attribute to that are the overtime, the careful watch on overtime in the Buildings and Grounds Department, and other expenses in that area. And then, what am I forgetting? I think the staff turnover, and then the expense control across the district was excellent this year. So that's really the biggest thing that we've done. So I'm done. No, I'm just kidding. So the next thing, the next objective was the strategic plan, and I'm going to point out certain things in that later on. So that whole report is attached with all of the backup documentation that shows what was used to show you those results. The customer service, I'm proud again to say that all of the categories went up except for one that stayed the same. It went down like a few percent or point, I don't know. It was the same rating, but it was like 0.2 down or something. But it was actually the same number, and I can point that out when we look at the strategic plan area. But all of the rest of the areas went up, and we got a better, the response rate keeps going up for that survey, which is great. Still on page 17, Oakton, as we all know, we've been living and breathing Oakton master plan, and a lot happened last year with this plan. We brought the board a new consultant to go through the pro formas. We looked at 8 different concepts for Oakton, brought the board, and the board the recommendation was brought to the board and approved in 2019 for that master plan. From there, we hired the public engagement company, which was quite a process beyond your base, and started the process of working on the public engagement process with the back end work with the staff started in November, I believe, right after we hired him. So we're meeting weekly, as I've told the board, and we picked a citizen-led committee of 33 people, and I am having gone through referendums, 2, one here and one in another district, this I can say is the best process. And I know there's, questions about, it's a lot of money to hire the consultant, but I think for the district, it's a very responsible thing to do for this large of a commitment, potential commitment at one of our largest facilities and at our largest park. So I've been very pleased with that process. The other thing, the cost-cutting initiatives, and I mentioned, some of the big ones. Some of the other things that happened, and again, this is a credit to the staff, and this is what happens when you have staff that are here and that are solid for a while, so they know their jobs, and now they're able to dig into some of these things. And one was, it's not a small thing, but the print managed services. So that was our, the copiers and the printers, right? Pretty much, it was a $10,000 savings because the staff that we have basically got the vendors down and was able to dig into that project. The banking service fees, we haven't seen the results of that yet, but that bid was complete, and we should see a savings. I mean, we're starting to see them, but $40,000 approximately in that. I mentioned the overtime costs. We have the software. We've added a lot of software to improve processes, right, over the last couple of years, and we've talked about that, and that adds costs. And they also, you think they're going to help with staffing and not needing as many staff. It's really the opposite, because there's so many intricacies of all of the software, and there's so many issues. And one of the ones with the payroll, we're still happy with the payroll, but there's been a lot of problems with that payroll software. And our director, DeGangi, has talked them down twice on issues we've had because she has not been happy with them on their solutions, and really worked hard at getting them, saying we're not paying certain things. And I don't have that exact amount, but it's substantial. And then executive administrative assistant Luke Cars and our marketing manager, they eliminated the third-party vendor for posting board meeting videos. Again, another just something that was a time-consuming thing to do, the process and learn and be trained, but that's also a savings to our budget. And then the other, one of the other things I'm really proud of the staff is that throughout the district, they've reduced the volume of paper we're using, and we're going to so many more electronic versions of everything. And I've listed the ones that were in the HR department, but several, there is, with the amount of staff, with 900 and some staff that we have, the documentation that we have to get back and forth is, it's very large. So you see all the things, electronic onboarding, personnel policy, the manuals are now being distributed electronically. The part-time performance evaluation and merit reviews, that was a project that was very large, and there was a committee that was pulled together by Diane, and they pulled this off, and they really wanted to do it because of the back and forth that they have with all these seasonal and part-time staff that are off at college, and they can't ever get forms. And so they worked very hard to be able to do that for this year, and they were successful at that. And the rec department, and these all in the end benefit the public and will save time and paper, our use of paper. I forgot what the software name is for Beyond the Bell and for Camp, but all the parents now can go online, instead of bringing in these forms, and it's all online, and then we can, the site staff can access it as well very easily. So that's been another very big initiative across the district. We've hired a lot of new firms as well, landscape architect firm for the Hinckley Park project. The banking services transition happened. Of course, the new attorney transition was a large project that I worked on with a team of a couple commissioners and staff. And so it's been a year of change in that regard. And again, those are things that, the district doesn't have to do. Those are certain items that are professional services. And we chose to do that for better operations and better controls, and, just more better for the district overall. Of course, there's the patron and the staff issues that I always highlight. They don't stop, and this year was no exception. Actually was one of the highest years I can remember for issues in the park. And they all happen at our busiest season. And I reference somewhere else in this report, but that we were finding with all of these incidents going on, they happen all over the district. They involve all the different kind of staff. We pulled together a team to be like we have crisis management teams, but just a management team for these kind of issues, just so we're all getting the same information, and we streamlined everything that we were doing. We also met with the police. We increased park patrol hours where we needed to, and I feel like that really had an effect on managing these issues and how we were reporting them, and also our cooperation with the police, and then getting our perk patrol more on board and trained on these kind of issues and what to look out for. Let's see. Northeast Park was a great project. We met with the staff, and again, not trying to recreate the wheel. We knew we wanted to do a different kind of a playground over there because we've got playgrounds nearby, but also thought it was an important thing to do. And so we met with the staff and created a playground that's a different experience for the residents. It was very well received. 2 new legislators were elected, so that creates increased communications and developing relationships with the legislators, and that's me. So I've been working with that. And we all know about the affiliate guidelines and the amount of time and effort and meeting with the affiliates on that. That was over a year project from start to finish. And I know that it was a tough one, and we knew it was going to be a tough one, and that's why we didn't do it. That's why we said this needs more time than when we did all the rest of the policies. So we held that one out and waited to meet with the groups. And everybody's not going to be 100% happy, but we feel like it was in the best interest of the district to revise that agreement, and we think that we have the most analyzed affiliate agreement in the state. So there was that. Of course, we welcomed 3 new commissioners to the district, and it was my pleasure to meet with them and help orientate them and attend our boot camp training, and so that was another change that we saw this year. Another, on page 20 on the top, we talk about the Wi-Fi upgrades and the IT and several initiatives with the IT staff to increase our communications throughout the district and to the public. And we're always looking for, improving those systems. Of course, I couldn't give this report, without saying that we've completed the budget success with not taking a tax increase. That was a 0% tax increase. And so that is pointed out on page 20. And that our budgeted percent of revenue from taxes was 41.6% and 49.9% from user fees. In 2020, we've budgeted 41.3% from taxes and 50% from user fees. So the rest is from grants, donations, interest, and miscellaneous. We spend a lot of time, as you can see in these attachments, looking at what other people are charging. So we charge within the marketplace for our programs and services. The Forest Preserve Project was another initiative that is kind of a visionary, outside the box initiative that I thought was very important to look at, because I believe in the long run, and hopefully we'll accomplish something out there. We're still evaluating, right? Is it the right thing to do? How much is it going to cost to clear, for a path out there? But I think it is worth exploring. We were very successful with the Forest Preserve, and that was a tough presentation, and we got tough questions, and it's not, as they told us, they don't normally approve these types of things. So we made sure we worked with the representatives and the elected officials and got in with the right people, and we have that conditional approval based on a lot of things. If we can afford it, if it makes sense, if everything comes together with that. I'm almost done. Friends of the Park, they did a great job this year. The trivia event was a great success. I think the alternate revenue report, if you look at it in the context of not getting the grant, it's about even, because this money has not been transferred to there. So it's about $50,000, $51,000 that they bring in, and it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it really is a good group, and they do put out a lot of effort, and it's great exposure as well for the district. So the museum grant that we discussed, so we're implementing that started last year, and we'll see the results of that hopefully in June when we open that to the public. And then, of course, we worked on the OSLAD grant and received that, but that was in 2020. So We'll talk about that again next year, and we're working through that process. At the very last bullet point, I just highlight, these are the bigger projects. We talked about Northeast, renovating South Park. I mean, these are the things that we have to keep up with, and I feel very proud of this district and the board. We spent a lot of time talking about these things, and these are projects that, we're taking care of the facilities we have. The flooring, the windows, the same thing with the activity center roof. They're not really exciting, but they do extend the use and the life of these buildings and these assets of the Park District. I'll keep going. On page 24, I'd just like to point out our participation numbers. We are pretty much even with last year, about 1,000 people down. It was a very rough spring at our pools and at the driving range, but our program registration is up, 38,229, and then you add in the daily users, we're at 413,560,000 people just registered and paying to use our facilities. This does not count the affiliate use and the use of the parks and all the people, using our parks for passive activities. Our success rate went up of our classes. It was 78.8% this year. And I'm pretty happy to say all of these objectives in the strategic plan, we have met. And a couple of the highlights, we increased the numbers of surveys, customer service surveys in the program areas this year. Like I said, our customer service results went up. Our bond rating remained at AA+. On page 25, I just highlight the social media statistics. This has become, for all of us, of course, it has really shifted, quickly. And we continue to see increases 16.7, 14.5, and 65.8 in all of those platforms. We've also added Oakton and had a concentrated team effort on target marketing Oakton like we did with the fitness center, and are, just meeting regularly as a team on how we can get, the people that are our core market into that building and how we can get the word out to them. The last thing on this section I wanted to point out is on page 26, and it's the turnover rate. I did get a question from Commissioner O'Donnell, and I can pass that out, of what it was compared to last year. And I mentioned earlier, I need one of those, sorry, earlier in the presentation that our turnover rate in 2018 was pretty high for us. We lost 13 people full-time. But as you can see, he wanted to see the differences between 2018 and 19. Did I not have enough of them? Oh, it's blank. So you guys can share. I don't think they printed anymore. But in 2018, our full-time turnover rate was 23.84% for full-time, and this year it's 3.64%. And this, compared to the marketplace, is low. Even at, nonprofits is 19.7 in 2008, but 20.5 in 2019. So we're doing very good. The part-time, it's gone up a few percentage points, but it's staying pretty much consistent in terms of turnover. So I thought I would share that with you. Let's see. Majority of what I had. Let me talk about that. I believe the rest of this is backup materials for you to look at, and I don't think I have anything else that I had to highlight, unless there's anything you want to go back and talk about.
Questions from commissioners on Executive Mountcastle's summary and review of the, from all accounts, a successful year.
No? All right.
Before I move to adjourn, I was remiss in doing this at the beginning of our meeting tonight, but I'd like to take a moment to recognize the service and the passing of Richard Brandt, who was a former Park Ridge Park District Commissioner for 8 years, and he served during his 80s. I wish us all that level of public service and dedication well into our 80s as well, but wanted to take a moment to recognize not only his service to the Park District, but also as a veteran and to his legacy. So if we could have a moment of silence for Richard, please. Thank you. All right. Any new business before we adjourn to closed session? Seeing none, I move to adjourn to closed session for the purposes to discuss Executive Director Mountcastle's 2019 performance review and compensation 2C1. We will reconvene to open session to take action on the Executive Director's performance review and compensation. May I have a second?
Second.
Any concerns, questions? Commissioner Leach?
I want to be on the record on this, and I've said this to Executive Director Mountcastle before. I'm a huge proponent of open session, and I believe most things should be an open session, and I vote that way. This is the one area, regardless of statutory, legal, anything like that, I think it's unethical to ever have review comments for someone of her nature, really any employee, to be publicly done. So I just want to also suggest she had an outstanding year, and it's been a pleasure, of course, working with you again this last year.
Any other comments or questions before taking the vote?
Go
Roll
ahead.
call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Grau, Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnell, Commissioner Coyne.
Aye.
Commissioner Harrington.
Yes. I reconvene to the regular board meeting to take action on Executive Director's performance review and salary compensation. Today is still Thursday, March 5th, and the time is 9:46 p.m. 41, thank you. Need my eyes checked. All right, at this time, I move to retroactively, as of January 1st, 2020, increase Executive Director Mountcastle's salary with a 4% merit increase. Additionally, due to superior performance, a $2,500 bonus to be included in her total compensation. May I have a second?
Second.
Any comments at this time from other commissioners? I have a few. I had mentioned that I am very comfortable providing some comments in open session, and you make it very easy to do so. I know that we are a extremely high expectation district. From the level of service we expect from our park district as patrons and residents, but also I know that we're a very high expectation board, and that we challenge you and thus in turn challenge the staff to provide a high level of service and quality programming and shape of our parks. And so recognizing that, I think we're very fortunate to have you at the helm of this park district. Very lucky to have your years of experience and your professionalism, your respect in how you treat your staff and patrons of the park district. I think that the board has all agreed that this past year you have operated with superior performance. The district's operating at a high level of satisfaction, productivity, programming, and relevancy in programming. Is there always room for improvement? Yes, that's why we're here. And I think you, in your professionalism, also recognize that. And I think that's what we appreciate about you as our executive director, is that we're going to continue to push those limits and delivering more. And I think you do that. I think that the board determined this type of total compensation structure to show you how we valued the performance that you delivered this year to the district and want to encourage you to continue operating at this high level and also surpassing it. So it's been a pleasure working with you this year. And personally, I'm very pleased with the current status of our district with you at the helm. Other commissioner comments?
Well, as I said during closed session, I have been impressed with your level of responsiveness and your willingness to try some new things and tweak some things to see what will best meet the needs of both our park district and of the community. And it's really been great to see that. And you've also been really easy to work with for a newbie commissioner.
The board tonight took this consideration very seriously, as we do with all of our decisions, but we recognize that these are taxpayer dollars that we're representing, and we kept that at top of mind when making this decision.
I'd just like to thank the board for your deliberation and consideration. That is truly appreciated. And I know that the pressures that everybody's put under for, these decisions, and it's greatly appreciated. And I thank you and look forward to another great year.
Thank you. No other comments. I think we can take a vote.
Sure. Commissioner Coyne? Commissioner Grau? Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Leach?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle? Commissioner Harrington?
Yes. With no further business, I move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned.